Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us at the IWSA weekly interviews. And today I'm talking with Konstantinos Fakiolas from FinOcean. Hi, Kostas. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Gavin. Thank you very much for the invitation. Pleasure to be with you.
Pleasure's all mine. Kostas has been working in the shipping industry for the last 20 years, especially in retrofit and new build installations on the design and project management side. He's a naval architect and marine engineer, so we're in very safe hands today and looking forward to hearing your presentation about the FinOcean and your activities. So please,
thank you very much.
Take it away.
Thank you very much. So, dear shipping industry colleagues, with wind energy harvesting technology on ships is a novel application which requires in-depth analysis, suitable design, incorporation for new buildings, and qualitative project management during retrofits. So in this presentation, we will describe to you the methods we use in FinOcean to ensure successful execution and materialization of such wind propulsion projects, while we shall also demonstrate how wind propulsion technologies can enable the IMO greenhouse gas strategy compliance for existing and new ships. But let us provide you some words about us. FinOcean is a naval architect and project management and consulting company based in Turku, Finland, with international presence. Our team has deposited experience in developing, contracting, and delivering over 130 customized, designed, energy-efficient cargo ships in Asian shipyards, and we are able to develop full commercial and technical contracts, working for over 20 years with ship energy efficiency systems and environmental technologies. So we have retrofitted over 50 ships through large-scale, high-value contracts and of high project management intensity. Well, our journey with wind energy or ships starts in 2013, where we actually have been engaged with the very first installations in Finland, while being an active member of International Windship Association, and we deepened our involvement in promoting wind technologies adoptions on ships. And since 2018, we have a hub coordination role for Nordic countries. During these last 7 years, we are daily researching wind propulsion adaptation, and we're funding participants in the WISP joint industry project, which is we are together with reputable industry players. We are supporting the development of performance prediction evaluations and regulatory framework for wind systems. So combining our total so far specialization in wind propulsion and design development and project management for new buildings and retrofits, we bring a reliable support for such projects to ship owners. And we are actually developing, we are able to develop systems, market studies for any kind of wind application. We are making performance analysis and investment contracting, and also project management in new buildings. We actually have one new method that we can present, which is a unique approach for new buildings. Is our design with a wind methodology. What we do is that we develop a wind propulsion ship concept around the wind environment where the ship will operate. Every design stage later is validated and reviewed based on the same wind impact. And when the design is progressed and being shaped appropriately, we optimize based on the aerodynamics so that again the winds are the high focus as an energy source. And finally, we do not leave it just as a concept. We are aiming to make wind-assisted design ships fully materializable. So we utilize our high experience in Asian shipbuilding to make specifications friendly to the well-known shipbuilder standards so that the contract is facilitated and eventually being signed. We believe that there are superior advantages in this method. First of all, our new design suggestions are wide-beamed, shallow draft ships, which allow high trading route utilization and better, much better exploitation than existing benchmarks. Designing with the wind is also enabling to optimize power management together with the main propulsion engines that we can use on board. And eventually we have seen gains in engine room size reduction, favoring cargo capacity intake over same dimensions. But we also select the most optimal hull form to sustain better heel and wheel lay angles created from the wind forces. The ship can be used with the winds more extensively when seakeeping and maneuvering are improved. And there is a better adjustment in variating wind conditions, especially in off-sail mode. So we all know that the very first energy efficient ENDI compliant ships came after 2014. And so far around 2,800 ships, deep sea, fully commercial ships are actually delivered. In this table, you can see that the shipyards and designers have worked hard to reduce CO2 emissions and comply with phase 1 and phase 2 of the EDI, but phase 3 is really very difficult to beat with conventional optimization methods, while some larger ships cannot even reach phase 2. So all these ships, despite being modern and eco, they are unable to comply beyond 2030 IMO requirements as they come. In another example of an Eframax tanker, we will show you, we can observe what happens with such most super stretched, super efficient design available when it's available. And it is a ship that can comply already with phase 2. It is very close to reach phase 3 of IMO. But for that ship to be competitive with the ships entering the seas during the next decade, there must be some extra measures to be taken to reduce the CO2 footprint. A speed reduction immediately brings a close to 5% improvement. And then only through very expensive retrofits can we, considering alternative fuels, can we reach another 14%. But when we are having a suitable arranged system, a wind system, the benefit can be 10%, rendering the ship compliant even by 2035. I have prepared another example for you to show what happens on a Suezmax tanker which is built before 2014. So when it's not built according to the EDI rules, that ship needs to reduce CO2 footprint by 20% at least when the IMO will vote for the short-term measures of the greenhouse gas emission strategy expected end of this year. So how can this be possible? Huh? Well, first, a speed reduction of, let's say, 2.5 knots will give a maximum 12% benefit according to our calculations. But then smaller interventions possibly can provide for another 5 to 7%. Eventually, when you consider a wind propulsion retrofit solution, this can contribute to 7 to 10% with relatively medium capex expenditure and with much less OPEX requirements. So our last kind of study case I've prepared for you relates to the maximum expectations anticipated from wind propulsion systems on a given ship. So here we go back to the Aframax tanker, and then we use the simple lift force calculation. It's just simple physics to show for an apparent wind angle of 90 degrees and for relatively medium wind speed of before 5, what is the anticipated best performance we can get from, let's say, rotors or wing sails at the moment? Even if we include the 15% total average losses somewhere in the calculation, because of various conditions, interaction effects, and so on, we still get a benefit quite high, 25% daily fuel consumption reduction when the system is used. And this calculation is devoid of any vendor bias, so that it's just the physics of the technology that can be used. So all this evidence actually support that the viability of considering wind-assisted propulsion for new and existing ships is really high. In our company, we are actually have been equipped with all the necessary team and tools to undertake full project evaluation and engineering so that any such new building and retrofits with wind assist technologies is becoming well studied, well handled, and successfully delivered. So we take care of the full project cycle from initial performance prediction. We are studying the design integration of the technologies in the ship, and also the class engineering and approval. We're taking care of procurement and contracting for the technology and for the shipyard management, the installation, and finally even the evaluations after the delivery of the ship. So recognizing that the shipping industry needs a better formalization and information availability for wind propulsion, I have personally developed a handbook around the principles of wind propulsion for commercial ships, since I have been observing that a lot of my colleagues were not so much familiar with it. So it is done as simple as possible, so that it is easily readable without having a lot of technical knowledge. It actually refers to commercial available technologies at the moment, which are running on seas. And it's a guidance also to ship owners, operators for the optimal integration of wind technologies. My intention is to upgrade it more with better editions with more material as the whole industry evolves and as we have new information coming up. I would like then to, we really believe in FinOcean that energy from winds can be effectively harvested to benefit the ship decarbonization, and we shall be very happy to work together for this direction. So thank you for your attention, and we're looking forward to hearing from you.
Okay, thank you very much, Kostas. Really fascinating insight into wind propulsion applications there, and those case studies really bring home the potential benefits and the potential costs there. And actually, I'm going to start off with a question that relates to that, which is around the segment of shipping that is developing or is likely to develop the quickest, the fastest with wind propulsion technology. You took a look at I think it was bulkers and tankers there. Do you see those as the key segment of development for wind?
It is definitely, Gavin, the key segment for me. Also, I happen to have been specialized a lot, many years on this particular segment. So I am the last 10 years, I've been studying a lot. And actually, I'm one of the first naval architects that participated in the development of the first energy efficiency EDI compliant ships designed to actually even beat the EDI phases. And these are pure commercial cargo ships. So we're talking about bulk carriers, oil tanker, chemical tankers, container ships, gas carriers. So this is my basic specialization. So naturally, I am interested to support the improvement and incorporation of wind technologies in these ship types. And actually, these ship types are actually concentrating the majority of the long-distance ocean-going vessels, who are the ones that need energy efficiency and reduction of carbon footprint. So in a way, my study and focus on research is around these ships, which is a quite big majority. And as you saw from the presentation, it is actually lacking EDI. There are not a lot of low-hanging fruits, or say, and easy ways to go one step further to comply with phase 3.
Yeah, so I think that is the real picture there is that actually there's not a lot of options available. And certainly not options that are the cheap or the early wins.
Definitely. And the ships which have the highest utilization, the highest fuel consumption, and relatively slow speed are the ones that will be 100% benefited the most from wind propulsion. And these are all these big oil tanker, bulk carriers, gas carriers, and who are actually sailing around 12, 11, 12, up to 14 knots. Now we have seen the last, especially the last 10 years, we see a continuous trend towards 10 to 11, 12 knots of sailing speed. So the fleet has been slowing down, but they are thirsty in fuel consumption. They are having continuous utilization. And it's actually the ideal application for wind technologies.
That's a really interesting take on that. And from when you're looking at the debate around decarbonisation, do you see much of that debate actually going on with wind propulsion in mind and the sort of hybrid benefits that wind propulsion actually bring here?
I would say not 100% yet. I mean, not a lot. The ship owners are looking mainly how to replace the fuel. That's their main objective. They are kind of focused on this direction, and because of course they need to have a stable power supply so that they can manage it properly. But in a way, there are ways where we can use abundant energy in the oceans, which is actually quite much available. And studies have shown that, and we also have done a lot of studies for numerous routes around the globe. And we can see that if you are doing an optimal retrofit and with power management combined on your existing engine setup, but also for your new building, so you can actually achieve to have a high utilization of the wind systems with the smart main engine powered for the ship when you need extra power if you don't have winds.
Mhm.
But generally, to come back to your question, indeed, I see that the shipping industry is still needs to receive more confidence
Mm.
on the on the wind technologies being a solution which is actually proven.
Yeah. So I mean, from what I can see, there's probably three parts to that. One is the classification and the confidence that these are safe, robust systems being installed. Second one would be the validation of the savings or the propulsive energy that can be delivered. And the third point would seem to be that we also need more demonstrator vessels.
Yes, I would say we need to get more long-term reference feedback data from vendors that they're using the system and from owners that they're using the systems. But also we can approach the problem, and we can actually approach through a very through analytical simulations and predictions, performance predictions. And this is also another area I'm working on with joint collaborations with other industry experts, and we can develop simulations and performance predictions not only by taking the features of the wind systems, but also incorporating them in the ship performance to see how the ship will perform with this and to find the optimal arrangement. In a way, if we do that, and if we also combine it with the weather routing and voyage optimization, which I must say it is necessary so that you get the maximum out of the wind technologies, then we can see that already that we can already have a range of 10, 15 to even 35% of CO2 emissions, depending on the ship type and size.
Yeah, no, I mean that's it certainly chimes with what I've heard from ship owners. I mean when ship owners are assessing and looking at installations, what is we've seen more demonstrators coming into the market. What is holding those ship owners back? Is it simply the classic ROI calculation, or is it more on the side of we're not sure about these systems?
I think it's still the tendency to think by terms of payback,
Hmm.
on payback of the technologies related to the fuel savings. But of course, I believe this will change, and it is changing since we see a lot of development around regulations for CO2 emissions.
Hmm.
2 weeks ago, we know and we heard and we saw in the news that 17 of the major charterers of the world are actually came together and agreed to include a clause in their chartering terms, the so-called sea cargo
Hmm.
charter, that the ship owners needs to report the CO2 they emitted from their voyages for each voyage, including ballast voyages. So I think all these measures taken, and also IMO with the greenhouse gas short phase decision that they're coming for 2023, there will be extra incentives for ship owners to consider wind technologies, because now it's not only the payback, it's also about CO2 emission reduction and compliance. But eventually, ship owners need to get confidence that it will work without problems, so that they are covered 100% on their investment.
That makes sense.
I
That
think
makes
it's
sense. Yeah.
all this together.
Absolutely. And you've been following the wind propulsion technology, or been part of the wind technology development for quite a few years now. And I'm interested to hear your perspective on taking us back 5 years, back to 2015, which
Hmm.
seems like a different world to me, but there we go, in many different ways. But taking us back to 2015 and then looking at the last 5 years of development, um, what is your take on the development of this segment over that?
I actually, indeed, Gavin, I have been involved since before 2015. And
Mm,
2014, I remember myself, I was engaged in the first kind of feasibility evaluations for oil tankers to install rotors that time. And I was actually amazed by the performance that these systems and the others that there are now in the market could have, because that triggered me the interest as a scientist myself and as a naval architect to research further. So that's how I started. But I indeed noticed that there is a progress. So I got in touch and familiarized myself and learned from technology providers what kind of depth of development they've done in their lives. There are systems like, for example, the propulsion kite. It's a system which has been developed more than 15 years now. And despite that it has been applied already in 5 ships, there is a lot of know-how which is involved. The rotor is the same. I mean, the current technology providers are engaged over 5 years with these technologies. They have already running ships. So there's continuous feedback of information. And therefore, there is a lot of development because all these companies are fine-tuning the way their systems operate to make it even better and even better in performance. This should already provide a certain level of initial confidence to ship owners to get into discussion with them. But of course, there should be a little bit more transparent information sharing. And as you say, people are looking more on the fuels because I think that the industry is also wishing to give a radical solution to that respect. But there is development. Now we see also wing sales companies coming with a lot of tests and other promising features. So there is a lot of progress happening in the wind technology industry. I'm trying to communicate that to the world and to the ship owners. It's the reason I actually wrote the book, so that people start a little bit to feel that this is not so uncomfortable as an application, and raise awareness that there are some technologies which are well worked, that they are developed every day as we hear, and it takes. I think they deserve to be tested and reviewed by ship owners.
Yeah, no, I mean, from my perspective, I've seen that maturing that you've just been describing. We're in a different place in 2020. It feels like we're just taking off the launch pad. The launch pad was there in 2015, but now we've got, I think it's going to be 13 or 14 installations of wind assist technology by the end of this year, and that should double next year. So I think we're accelerating into that area where there'll be enough points of reference and enough demonstrator vessels. So
Absolutely.
yeah, exciting times. Exciting times. Now I'm going to finish today's interview with, as I have done with other interviews, with some quick fire questions. So I'd like you to keep your answer to you could do a yes or no answer, but probably a one sentence answer for each of them. So you've touched on this already, but how did you personally get into this field? Because you mentioned you've been involved in this field for quite a long time. How did you get involved, and why did you get it?
Yeah, it is actually the scientific part of Costas, the professional one, but also the emotional one. I will start with the emotional one. The emotional one is that I always wanted to be an aerospace engineer, but I followed the maritime industry profession because of my father, who was many years in the shipping industry. And now I can actually combine the very high know-how in technological aerodynamics, the knowledge about aerodynamics, it comes to the hydrodynamics. So the air meets the sea through the ship. So for me, it's exciting. It becomes automatically exciting also as a naval architect. And then since I truly see that there is a very high potential of wind technologies, as long as they are smartly engineered, designed, and the whole problem around the ship is studied carefully, then really the investment from the ship owner makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's very clear. So not space, but maybe deep space.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And what are your plans for yourself, for your consultancy going forward over the next year? Stretching out to the next couple of years. Where do you see yourself?
We see with our team in FinOcean, we see ourselves as supporting ship owners and technology providers to materialize projects in a way that there is a successful delivery to the ship owners. So that's we study the whole problem together with the ship owners. We help for retrofits. We believe a lot that wind propulsion systems can be a very good solution to reduce CO2 emissions for existing ships first. But of course, new buildings need a little bit more work because you have also to incorporate the systems within a design optimization. And this is actually the part of the presentation I showed about the design with the wind methodology that I've developed on that respect. So I see myself as a specialist of wind technology applications on ships in the next 10 years.
Oh,
the preferred partner for any ship owner.
Absolutely, absolutely. And okay, so we've been talking a lot about the opportunities in wind propulsion and the exciting developments there. But we've got some barriers, and I've alluded to these around the ship owner. What is the most difficult barrier to overcome? It may be with ship owners, maybe with policymakers, maybe on the technical front. What is the most difficult barrier, in your opinion?
I think the most difficult barrier that is actually the confidence that the wind energy harvesting is going to be delivered, and that there is not going to be any risks, financial risks. So I think that's the biggest. What ship owners would like to receive, and that they need to see, so they feel confident about it.
Okay.
It's an industry, yes.
No, that's okay. We could probably talk about that issue for another whole webinar or a whole interview. Yeah,
absolutely.
But I'm gonna keep these tight because we only got a couple more minutes. EEDI. One of the big issues around EEDI for wind propulsion is the use of a global wind matrix within that. What do you think of that, and how can that be reformed?
Indeed, EDI is actually important point that you say, because it will be the criteria for the future ships to be compliant of the new phases. So incorporated technologies have to fit in a way that they are favored from the EDI formula. The EDI formula is very simplistic, so it takes only 1 point of operation of the ship in a specific speed, which means that the wind technologies are getting more optimal if you are dynamically modifying the speed and the course on the ship around the globe. In that respect, it actually underestimates the wind technology efficiency. And this is a major work we're doing now with the WISP project, to try to find ways to suggest improvements in the EDI methodology, and also make this recommendation to IMO as well.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And we have the EEXI being discussed, and you mentioned that in your presentation. How will that impact the uptake of wind propulsion technology?
I think it will have positive benefits in a way that even the EDI formula as it is, it can give a certain percentage. I think we saw in this Suezmax tanker, it can get a 7 to 10%, depending on what kind of systems you put on board and what kind of arrangement. But if you had the way to use an optimized formula, because the EXI is related to the EDI by means of structure of the formula. So if you can have a better methodology, you can get even more benefits on the regulatory requirement side.
Okay, and the last question on this is, if you've got a company that's thinking about wind propulsion technology, but really doesn't know what to do here, well, how to go ahead, maybe doesn't have the internal resources to actually assess and validate these systems, what are the first steps they should be doing?
It is indeed a good question, because it's not so straightforward. The wind technologies need to be evaluated, reviewed, and also studied together with the ship, with its specific ship type and size, and also the specific routes. So what actually I'm suggesting to ship owners, and this is what we're doing in FinOcean, we are studying specific ship types and sizes. We make feasibility analysis for all technologies that they are available and knowledgeable so far, we know so far. And we actually provide good indications about performance to the ship owner, so that he has informed decision tool to understand whether this wind technology investment makes sense for him or not. And this is how we start with ship owners, helping them. And we already have started projects in various areas of the world with specific ship owners.
So the first step give you a call.
Yes, I think that
Well,
would be a very good step.
that's great. Well, look, Kostas, thank you very much. Now I'm going to give you just 1 minute to give a sort of wrap up statement, a takeaway for the people watching this. So I'm going to hand that over to you. So you've got 1 minute and the clock starts now.
Thank you. I think the final message that I can give you is that wind assisted propulsion is workable, is beneficial, and is readily available. Despite the wind intensity variations, a well-studied system can actually yield a 10 to 35% of fuel and CO2 savings during the use of it, as we have experienced and studied. Of course, also the wind energy is transparent and directly calculated, and the wind variations are predictable and well known. So we know at least 2 to 3 days in advance, and we can proactively manage on board. So a smart, well-studied installation arrangement together with weather routing and voyage optimization is actually maximizing the potential. So I encourage strongly shipowners to look into that.
Thank you very much, Kostas. Really appreciate. That's Konstantinos Fakiolas from FinOcean. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gavin, for the opportunity.
No, it's my pleasure. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the IWSA weekly interviews. Of course, we're going to have more interviews coming each week. And I'd just like to say, if you do have any questions for Kostas, he'll be more than happy to send you an email. The details were earlier in the presentation slide. And of course, if you want further information about wind propulsion technologies, then you can also contact me at secretary@wind-. So thank you very much. Stay safe and fair winds. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.